My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today is January 3rd, 2022. I have received some questions over the last week or so about what are my New Year's resolutions. So I thought I would answer that for today. When I was talking to these people, I told them, listen, I'm probably the worst person in the world to ask about New Year's resolutions. And the reason for that is because I don't make New Year's resolutions. But if people care enough to ask, I thought maybe I should think a little bit deeper into this subject, and I want to give them a little bit more of a fuller answer. So as I thought about it more, I want to talk about why I don't have resolutions, number one. And number two, I also want to talk about some of my concerns about the new year. So number one, I don't make resolutions because I always have the same major goals. January 1st is not a big deal to me in terms of changing my life. Like I've been on the same path ever since I can remember. I don't remember the age because it's been so long. Probably was around 8 years old or so. So again, these are just ongoing goals that I've always had. So resolutions are not a thing for me. So what are these things that I've always wanted to do? What are these goals? And I would say number one, I wanted to acquire knowledge. And as I got older, I realized that wisdom is even more important. So I'm always in the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom. There's a difference. If you have knowledge of, say, how to defend yourself, you might be good at boxing, karate, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. Would be knowledge. If you knew how to build an atomic bomb, that would be knowledge. But wisdom is the ability to know when you should fight and when you shouldn't fight. Or if you do fight, how do you do it? So wisdom is much more important, but you can't really have wisdom without knowledge and experience. So with that, I've been on a constant pursuit. So I would say that's probably number one. Number two, I've always wanted to improve myself physically, and that's on an ongoing basis. I work out 6 days a week, so I continue to do that. January 1st is no big deal to me. And I also pursue that in terms of my nutrition. I eat very well, and that's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week process. I might cheat a little bit on one day, but that's about it. Not even on one day, one meal for one day. So that's a constant pursuit of what I'm trying to do. It's not a resolution. Number three, and a very big one over the years, probably the most difficult for me, was to improve my ability to connect to people. Ever since I was very young, I used to listen to adults and I liked hearing people, and I liked the differences in human beings and what makes people tick. But I was always very shy, number one, and I'm very introverted. So I would listen way more than I would ever talk. And I was so shy that it became very difficult for me throughout most of my life to be able to be present with another human being, to be able to really have a good conversation. And over the years, I've noticed that it's a skill that is really a requirement if you want to be a good human being. So I keep trying on a regular basis. And I'm not even half to where I want to be. But again, that's a constant pursuit of the ability to connect to human beings. So again, that's third on my list. Number four, I would say, is that I have found, or I keep trying to find ways to spend my time doing things that actually make me happy. Now, I know that sounds ridiculously, easy. Of course, we want to do things that make us happy. But I can tell you this, coming from a family of low socioeconomic background, you would think that maybe I care about money. That's the most important thing. Like, that's why I wanted to go to college. That's why I want to be good at things. And it's not. What I did was I wanted to be able to pursue things that I enjoy. So if I liked working out and I love nutrition, I wanted to somehow figure out how could I make a job out of that. And as I said before, I love hearing from people. I like knowing about different people and what makes them tick, what makes them move, what's responsible for their behaviors, how they can modify their behaviors and things like this. So I enjoy that. So I figured out a way to make a living out of doing that as well. I wanted to make a living out of playing football, but at 5'6", it's not a lot of call for somebody like that. So that didn't work out. But for the most part, whatever I love to do, I figured out a way how to extract money from a capitalistic country. So that's what I've done. What is the result of all that? I'll give you the result. The result here is that my goals are 100% completely dependent on me. So nobody can make me feel bad other than myself. I try not to care about any external sources at all, including fame and money. Now, I wouldn't be against fame and money, but fame and money would be good because then I can expand my reach and how many people I can help. But it's not a barometer if I'm a good person or not. That's not what the barometer is. The barometer is if I can do the right things and live up to values and virtues. That's most important. If people care about that, that's great. If they don't, that's not my fault. So I try not to worry about what other people do and think and care about. Although there's a temptation there, of course. I would say since about 1990, I haven't worked at all. So we're looking at now, it's 2022, so we're looking at about up to 32 years now that I haven't had a job, I haven't worked. And why do I feel that way? Well, because I've been paid to do only the things that I love and only when I want to do it and only with the people I want to. So work for me, the definition of work would be when you're doing something when you would be preferring to do something else. So in that sense, I'm doing what I want to do all the time. I've worked for myself for 32 years and I'm using the word work because that's how people understand it. But to me, I spend time with people and I enjoy people and I connect to the world. I don't call it work, although I do get compensated. So that's one of the good things about following your heart rather than your head, because I can hear it from a lot of people going, you should do this, you should do that to make a lot of money. But if you don't like it, you don't like it. I graduated high school with a 2-year certification in computer programming, which I hated every second of it. And that would seem like that would have been a great thing to do at the time. And obviously that's true because computers became more and more of a big deal up until now as well. But I had no connection to it. I didn't like it. I could do it, but I don't want to spend 8 hours a day doing something where I'd rather be doing something else. So I chose not to do that. A meaningful life, for me, the secret is to attempt to continue to grow, to be in a state of metamorphosis where you're trying to become something. You're trying to, and I'll probably use this word a lot today, you're trying to ascend to something. You have a goal. You want to be a rising star, or I would say a rising stock. If you're stagnant, you're dead. It's like being in a body of water that's stagnant. It's gonna die. I don't want that. I want to be like a flowing river that's going to something. Technically speaking, if you put your foot in a river, let's say at noon today, and then you put your foot in the same river at 1 o'clock, it's not the same river because the water keeps flowing and moving. So it's not the same river. And I think that with people, you should be in a constant state of ascension and in a constant state of growth. Now, this is hard to do because as you get older, the truth of the matter is, in terms of nature, is that you're becoming one day closer to dying. So technically speaking, you're not. So to me, the goal is always to try to, as your cells get older, as the days and the calendars are disappearing in your life, you're trying to meet that with an equal and opposite reaction of growth. It's like having a bucket and there's a hole at the bucket and the water keeps pouring out. You're going to go dry and be dead in a matter of seconds. But if you keep trying to pour water into the bucket, you won't even really notice how much water you're losing because you are creating something and you're struggling to be better. So that's my version of a meaningful life. So that answers the question, Why don't I have resolutions? Because my life is a complete resolution. But here are some of my concerns. And I have a lot of them as I was thinking about this, and maybe this is why I didn't want to answer the question in the first place, is because I have to be honest and truthful. And that's one of the most important things I can think of when you're trying to be a good human being, is that, it's bad enough to lie to other people, but you don't want to lie to yourself. You have to be true and honest with yourself. So hopefully you can do something about it if there's something to be done. So here are some of my concerns. I'm 56 years old. What I've noticed is, as you get older, your life tends to shrink, whether you want it to or not. Let's talk about the physical side. I diet really well, amazingly well. I train as hard as a human being can train, 6 days a week. But I'm still, in a sense, life gets smaller. A couple of years ago, I did a show and I was easily, by far, the best one there. They let me win my class, but they didn't let me win the overall because they don't want to put me on the poster as a guy in his mid-50s. They wanted to put the 25-year-old guy on the poster. You age out in certain things. I think Roger Daltrey, my favorite singer from The Who, said you never have to quit the music business. The music business will quit you. Like, that's what happens. Like, don't bother to quit. Like, you don't have to. They'll fire you. And I've noticed that as I've gotten older, is that you get pushed out of things, even if you are better. So and plus my body itself, when I was younger, I could do what I wanted to do, and I didn't think about it. Now that I'm older, there are a lot of aches and pains. There are a lot of injuries, and some of these injuries, they start to pile up, and whether it's, a shoulder, a hip replacement, whatever, a torn bicep, whatever it is, these things tend to add up, and it's very, very hard to continue ascension when your body has parts of it that are not repairable. So that's an issue. Let's talk about the cognitive part. As you get older, I get a little bit worried. I have not, at least to my knowledge, that I can see that I've had a cognitive decline. But I'm very worried about it. My mother and father both had levels of dementia. So I'm doing everything possible not to have that. But am I worried about it? Of course. So it's very, very hard to keep trying to expand your brain on a regular basis when nature does its thing and is extracting and stealing things from you all the time. Definitely a big concern of mine. People grow up as well. There was a time in my life when I had my sister living with me, which meant my niece was living with me, and it was fun. I was a stepfather. But people get older and they move out, and your life shrinks. I'm sure there's people out there too that, as you get older, when your kids move out, it's a great thing. It means you did a great job as a parent. Your children can be independent, and that means you did an excellent job. But in that sense, you lose part of your identity, and so your life most likely gets a little bit smaller. It's hard to deal with when you're getting older, right? People die. Both of my parents are dead. They're not replaceable. Like, how do I go into ascension or growing and metamorphosizing into something more, to having better relationships with my parents when they're both gone? That's not replaceable. I noticed too, at my age, there's a lot of people that are not happy. As they get older, they get angry and bitter. And of course, when I'm around angry and bitter people, I tend to recoil. And I don't want to talk to people like that, and I tend to back up. So all of this connection that I really desire as a human being, I can't have it as much as I would prefer, because the people around you as you get older, they tend not to be as happy. At least that's what I've noticed in my general surroundings. And you can maybe see this in social media too, that people are just very angry these days, and who wants to connect to people that are not, say, trying to do better, not trying to be a rising star, because I prefer to be around people who are looking forward to doing good things, not complaining about situations that are happening today. All in all, it just does become harder to replace your losses when you get older. Now, as I said, I'm very much into taking care of the things that I can control, which is myself. So always try to improve myself as a human being in every which way possible. But if I'm being honest, I have to say I do connect to the outside world. I'm wired, just like every other human being. We're wired for connection. We're wired to help people. You know, any break in that is usually from some type of trauma, because we all need people. So to say in like psychology, well, it's all about you. Be the individual. Be a rugged individual. Don't care about the people around you. That's going against what human beings are. By nature, we're very group oriented. We do care about what other people think. And a big part of my life is the outside world. It doesn't necessarily make me happy about me, but it gives me enjoyment. And I'll give you some examples of this and why I have some concerns. Let's take a look at movies, for example. I've loved movies a lot of my life. Since I was a little kid, you know, you watch movies all the time. Now, I know you can think about objectivity and subjectivity. You know, everything is a point of view. But if you look at the experts, right, and the critics, and you look at, say, what they think of the top 100 movies, did you know, I don't think that there's any movies that were made since after the year 2000 that make that. So again, as I get older, I'm trying to connect to the outside world as I get older. It's getting more and more difficult. There hasn't been really any great movies made in over 20 years. When you look at it, it's like, you know, you look at the theater and it'll say Toy Story 4, you know, Friday the 13th, number 15, whatever the heck it is. How many Spider-Man movies we gotta watch? How many Marvel movies we gotta watch? The same garbage. Can anybody write anything new? Something special that moves people? My answer should be yes, I'm hoping, right? I'm hoping, the year 2022, if you write movies, please come out with something new. Come out with something that moves me. You know, just something. Make me laugh, make me cry, make me inspired. Do something. Because I'm getting tired of watching the same garbage. For 20 years, there hasn't been a real good movie out yet. Let's look at music. Again, it's up for debate, but there are people way smarter than I am that know music backwards and forwards, and you can listen to them, and they'll tell you, you can look at music from a very objective point of view to see how they're making music today. And most of it's not made by human hands. That already tells me that you're not a musician. We're listening to people who are not musicians. The average song today on the radio, maybe 3 chords, maybe. Possibly 4 if they're going crazy. Like, so they're not really writing anything. The singers, they're all auto-tuned. You know, listen, let's go back. I don't care who you name. Elvis Presley. Let's name Barbra Streisand. Freddie Mercury from Queen. These people were amazing, amazing singers that could hit every note that they needed to hit. They didn't need a machine to keep bending the notes into place. And the problem with this is, as time moves on, is that if you have a machine that moves the notes into place, you have no need to really practice, do you? You don't. There's no need to spend hours and hours and hours per day perfecting your craft when a machine will take care of it for you. So you go out, you have a look, you know, you're the right height and weight proportionate, you get the right hairstyle, they put you out on stage and you mouth a couple of words and a computer sings for you now. You know, and these rhythms and beats, what are you talking about? These are not real drummers, these are machines. So again, there's nothing here for me. And again, I'm having trouble connecting to the outside world. I used to love listening to, who's gonna come out this week with new music? You know, what great concert it's going to be. I mean, down the street from me, Allegiant Stadium, Guns N' Roses played a sold-out show. Guns N' Roses is from 40 years ago. The Rolling Stones played here and sold out. The Rolling Stones are from 60 years ago. Like, who's new that's good? Like, honestly good. Not just one song and has a lot of, you know, social media following. I'm talking about someone who's a great musician that could write music that people want to hear for 50 or 60 years. Name it. I dare you, because it doesn't exist anymore. Let's talk about sports. I love sports. I love sports more than life itself. It's been my whole life in a certain way. That's why I ended up being a trainer. And I love watching football. I always did. I love playing. It's such a thing for me. I just love it. The problem is, football doesn't exist anymore. There's guys wearing football uniforms. I understand that. But these guys don't hit anymore. This is like the first real year of football that I just can't stand watching it. I hate watching it now because every time there's a decent hit, they throw a flag and you're not allowed to hit people hard anymore. You can't hit them in the head. Even if you get near their feet or their knees, they protect the quarterbacks. In psychology, we use a term called gaslighting, where people lie to you. They try to tell you that your environment is something else than what it is. I listen to these sportscasters, they're gaslighting to death. If you watch these modern day quarterbacks and you're going to compare them to the greats of old, like John Elway, Joe Montana, Dan Marino, you can't, it's not the same game. These guys are not getting hit. Their receivers are running free all over the field. And they're going to compare the numbers to the same numbers back in the 80s and 90s. It's not fair to the people who actually were playing real football. The other day, I happened on this channel, I don't know how it happened, but I just flipping through. And it was the best high school players that were going to be the recruits for major colleges. And they were talking about these guys, the top recruits. And they showed this one or two guys that were really popular because they had 2.2 million followers on TikTok. What the heck does that have to do with playing football? And then they show them on the video dancing. Now, I'm not talking about real dancing like a Fred Astaire or even a John Travolta. No, they're just jumping up like a bunch of idiots. And they get popular for that. And now they're going to move to a football career where you're not really going to get hit anyway. So the guy's like 5'11", 180 pounds. It's insane. Speaking about that, I was watching yesterday, Antonio Brown, another, overpriced crybaby on the Buccaneers, takes his uniform off, his whole upper body, takes off his shirt, and waves to the crowd and runs off the field. Now, besides the fact that that would not exist a bunch of years ago, he has no values, no virtues, nothing, no spine. Let's talk about how tough these guys are today. The first thing I thought of when I saw him, I'm like, this is a professional athlete. I mean, not to be a jerk about it or anything, but I'm a 56-year-old man. I looked at him, I'm far bigger than he is. And I'm much more muscular too. And I'm like, I'm 56 years old. This shouldn't happen. This little pipsqueak of a man running off the field like a little crybaby. I'm like, I'm just not connecting to this sport anymore. It's so hard. And I would like to connect to something. It gets boring just trying to do things for yourself, right? When they play football now, they're trying to run out of bounds all the time. I can't stand it. Bodybuilding itself too, bodybuilding was a huge part of my life. It might be my whole life when you really think about it. They're pageants now. There's bikini girls, there's figure girls, it's not really bodybuilding, and it's like everybody is getting pro cards now on default, because even in Nevada here, there used to be 2 major shows, and it was big. I remember competing, there'd be 100 guys that I had to go against, and it was hard. I went to a show a couple of weeks ago, and again, there's a show every weekend here now. I don't know why they do it. It's because they charge everybody like $375 to get in the show. And they make money even though that there's nobody in the show. It's like every class has 1 or 2 people, and then they all brag that they won. They got a trophy. You didn't compete against anybody though. And then you see the pictures on Facebook, and they all Photoshop them. So everything's fake. The trophy is fake, their winning is fake, their pictures are fake, everything is fake. It's not even bodybuilding. It's like, God, I'm having so much trouble connecting to this. So much. So this video is going to be a lot longer than I thought. Anyway, I guess I did have a lot to say about New Year's resolutions. Who knew? But anyway, yeah, and again, listen, if you're watching me, hopefully you're not an instant gratification person. I can't imagine you would be. But again, the one reason why no one's going to watch this is because it's longer than 3 minutes, right? That's the new thing, right? You got to have it like 2 minutes long. I wonder if they think about sex that way. It's ridiculous. So let's talk about some of the losses of 2021. The first major loss I can think of is the loss of truth. Yes, truth. 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4 anymore. It equals whatever you want it to be. It's not getting political to say the truth. It gets political when you say it's not the truth and you keep arguing about it. We've got 800,000 Americans dead, and there's still idiots walking around going, oh my God, I can't get the vaccine because the vaccine will kill me. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't even want to talk about that too much, but it's like, it's over and over and over and over again. Everything's a big lie. People want to lie. And they do it for, I don't know. Well, I'll tell you why, because they don't want to have any personal responsibility. They don't want to have to own up to anything anymore. It used to be when I was younger, I would hear men and women talk, and they would say, I'm really sorry that happened. You were right, and I was wrong. I've heard that so much. Growing up playing football in all sports, it would be admit to your wrongdoing immediately, and so then you could move on to the next part. I think John Madden said that too. Admit that you're wrong emphatically, and then move on. Say it. Be a human being. I don't see any people with value and virtue today. It's disgusting. Let's talk about another loss. I think it's the loss of decency. I look around and everybody's angry, oppositional, narcissistic. Everybody thinks that they're a star. I see this all the time. I went to school for a lot of years and did a lot of studying to be a therapist. Now everybody's a therapist. You look at social media and everybody's putting out these therapy things. Oh my God, here's a meme. Here's this. I know, everybody's diagnosing everybody. I can't put something on Facebook without somebody thinking that they're going to diagnose me or threaten to take my license away because I said something that they don't like. It's a really weird, really strange. Everybody thinks they're a musician too. Like I see a lot of these young guys at the gym and they could put they could rhyme something and rhyme it by mistake. And they're like, oh, I'm going to be the world's best rapper. Really? Listen, we used to do rhymes when we read like Dr. Seuss when we were in kindergarten. Like, making a rhyme does not make you a rap star, number one. And number two, rap is still not music. You can like it, that's great. But, you show me the chords, you show me notes, you show me the scales. There's nothing in that. So again, it's just people thinking there's something when they're not. All of these Instagram models. I did modeling when I was younger. You know how I did it? Big companies would track me down and ask me for my services. And I would get magazines, whatever, photo shoots. I would be on billboards here and there in New York City. And that was kind of cool because people wanted you to do it. They asked you to do it. And they were major companies. Now people think they're models because they sit at home and they'll take off their shirt, take a picture, and then a bunch of idiots follow them. And they're like, oh my God, I'm a famous Instagram model. You're not a model. You're taking pictures of yourself. Like, that's not the same thing. Like, it's not even close to being the same thing. It's fake. We live in a fake society. Again, I'm having a lot of concerns about the way the world's going. What other losses do we have? Listen, we lost Betty White the other day. She died at 99 years old. It's absolutely inconceivable that somebody's going to come around with her talent and her desire and, just her likability to be around in show business for like 90 years. It's inconceivable to think that she's replaceable. She's not. She's definitely not. Let's talk about John Madden, greatest sportscaster ever. He was also a great football coach. And he was so manly, and yet he was still able to talk about his fears, like he was afraid of flying. And he said that, and he had the Madden Cruiser, this bus, and he was okay with saying, I'm afraid to fly. It was okay. You could be manly and still have emotions and feelings and admit to it. And he was so smart, and yet he knocked down everything to its simplest form. As a coach, he only had 3 rules. And these are the 3 rules. Number 1, be on time. Number 2, pay attention. And number 3, play like hell when I tell you to. This is so simple. You can't even get people to do that today. Back a while back, you could have fought in Vietnam. You could come back. You could be a professional football player, put in about a good 10 years, and then go and have a family. All before you're 34 years old. Did you know, and I'm going to be doing a show on this soon, 25% of 29 to 34-year-old men still live at home. Okay, and I'm going to be the one people go, oh, hey, you're a boomer, like you don't know what you're talking about. Like, no, listen, this is not normal human development, okay? If you're 34 years old and you're a man, you shouldn't be living at home. It's stupid. Who else did we lose? We lost Hank Aaron, right? Like, okay, so I know that there's going to be other home run hitters, but are any of them going to have the legacy that he had? It's inconceivable to think that he is replaceable. Even somebody like Michael Nesmith from the Monkees. We used to laugh at the Monkees because although they had a lot of hit songs and they did play their own instruments, they were kind of a joke band. Why? Because the people around with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Who, Led Zeppelin, that's why. But by today's standards, the Monkees are like Mozart, Beethoven, and Chopin rolled into one. You know, and again, that's a whole nother thing that dies off. You know, and who else? Charlie Watts from the Rolling Stones died. Again, inconceivable to think that a band is going to last 60 years and still sell out arenas. That's like saying somebody like Ariana Grande is going to be selling out an 80,000 seat arena in the year 2080. I'll bet you any amount of money in the world that that's not going to happen. You know, like, where are the great writers? Ask yourself, if you had to make a list of the top 50 writers, even if it's like in just basic fiction or like horror movies, is there anybody that's new? No, somebody's gonna say Stephen King. Stephen King started like 50 years ago. Like, show me something new. Like, even in that kind of like that junk kind of books like James Patterson, it's like 50 years ago. Like, where are the new people? We can't, you know, the new musicians, the new artists, the new movies. Where? Show me. It's not happening. I think overall I agree with Betty White here, is that she did turn to animals. And I would say that animals are the only thing that I've noticed that are not degraded by the weaknesses of society, or they're not prone to the whims of a really weak culture. Animals are amazing and loving today, just as they were many, many, many years ago. That's the one thing in my life I could say that hasn't changed. And that's a positive. That's a positive for sure. So I definitely agree with Betty White there. So not to make this sound negative, and I know the show's kind of long, but you know how I feel about this. I'm having trouble with the outside world of finding something that's in ascension, something that's doing better. I can always control myself to get better, and that's what I choose to do. Again, not a resolution, just the cost of doing business as a human being. It's who I am. But I'll put this out there to anybody listening, and if you want to put it in the comments section, you can, or try to come up with it yourself if you're, you know, too shy to leave a comment. Try to think of something that's in ascension, something that's a rising star that you can attach yourself to in this world right now. And hopefully let me know, because I'm open for suggestions on something that's actually new and exciting. Show me a new musician that's doing something new. Remember when Queen came out with Bohemian Rhapsody and you didn't know that you needed to hear opera in a rock song until you heard it? And you're like, oh my God. The reason why they knew it and you didn't is because they were special. They had talent above and beyond normal human beings. And that's what I'm looking for. So if you can find somebody like that for me, guide me to a musician that I haven't heard, that's just absolutely amazing, that hasn't gotten their just due. Show me a movie that I haven't watched that's just absolutely amazing. Maybe an independent film. Show me a book, something that I just need to read because it's so amazing and it proves that society is still in ascension and is still growing and moving forward. So with that, I hope today's show was valuable to you. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. And please tell a friend and subscribe. Thank you.